Hey guys, this is lesson 9, celebrating those who fought for a cause. And the vocabulary we need to know for this story is democratic, which is relating to a form of government that includes giving people the right to vote for their leaders. Dignity is a sense of respect and honor. Disabilities is physical or mental conditions that, without the right support, might limit someone in some way. Obstacles is people or things that stand in the way of forward movement or that hold up progress. And taxes means money raised by the government to help pay for important things. Celebrating those who fought for a cause. You have listened to the stories of 7 extraordinary or amazing people who dedicated their lives to making sure that all Americans have equal rights. These great Americans were able to bring about changes that resulted in new, fairer laws. They were able to do this because the United States, since its creation, has had a democratic form of government. This means that the citizens of the United States are involved in the political process. People can vote for political leaders who represent their interests and needs. It took a while for every American adult to gain the right to vote, but eventually it did happen. Now each person has an equal say in deciding what kind of government they want. In order to vote in the United States, a person must be 18 years old and a citizen. That means that he or she must have been born in the United States, have parents who were born in the United States, or who are American citizens or have been granted citizenship. People who are granted citizenship are called naturalized citizens. Naturalized citizens are people who were born in another country but have chosen to become citizens of the United States. Every 2 years and every 4 years, important elections are held. As you have learned, the right to vote is called suffrage. Voters can decide who led their state and who should lead the nation. They can help decide if taxes or money should be raised by the government to pay for important things communities need, such as hospitals, schools, and libraries, or whether taxes should be reduced so that people have a little more money to spend. These are important choices that affect all Americans. Suffrage is a way of making sure the government is following the wishes of the people that it serves. Today, we take for granted adult American citizens have the right to vote. We hardly think about it at all. But you have heard about the journey that people long ago went on to make this a reality. You have also heard about the obstacles that were placed in their paths along the way. Let's now review the lives of the brave people we have just learned about. Susan B. Anthony. What is Susan B. Anthony famous for? Susan B. Anthony worked to expand women's rights in America, especially the right to vote. A woman must not depend on the protection of a man, but must be taught to protect herself. She once said. Susan was a famous leader of the women's rights movement, and sadly, Susan did not live to see the passage of the 19th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution in 1920, which made it legal for women to vote. Without Susan's efforts, however, the battle for women's rights might have gone on for much longer. And what is another cause that she fought for? That's right. She helped abolish slavery, so she was also an abolitionist. Eleanor Roosevelt. She worked to improve the civil rights and human rights of many groups of people in the United States. What are civil rights? That means rights that are guaranteed by the government. And human rights are rights that may not be guaranteed, but which most people should have. During the Great Depression, Eleanor worked tirelessly to help those most in need. Eleanor believed that all people should be treated fairly, equally, and with respect. Later in her life, Eleanor worked for the United Nations, and she took her message of freedom and equality all over the world. So, who was Eleanor Roosevelt's husband? That's right, Franklin Roosevelt. Mary McLeod Bethune worked to create educational opportunities for African Americans, especially girls, during the time of segregation. Segregation was the practice of keeping groups of people separate. So the white people and the black people lived and worked and went to school separately. They ate separately and everything. Mary opened a school that eventually became a 4-year college, and she helped many African American men gain the skills they needed to be able to vote. Mary worked closely with Eleanor Roosevelt and a talented team of African American advisors to improve opportunities for all Americans. It is said that Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier. That means that he ended segregation in professional sports. He became the first African American to play Major League Baseball when Branch Rickey, the president of the Brooklyn Dodgers, invited Jackie to play for his team. They both knew that they were attempting to change people's attitudes and to end discrimination in American sports. In 1947, when Jackie played in his first Major League game at Ebbets Field, he proved that he was not only an incredible baseball player, but he was also a man who had great courage. Jackie made the world a better place, and at the end of Jackie's first season with the Brooklyn Dodgers, he was chosen to be the Rookie of the Year, and baseball was finally integrated so that people of any race could play together. On that cold December night in 1955, when Rosa Parks refused to give up her bus seat, the world changed. Rosa's actions led to the Montgomery bus boycott. The power of so many people coming together to end unfair laws ultimately led to the end of legal segregation in the South. What is a boycott? It's when people stand up for a cause and refuse to use a certain company or product. Today, many people feel that the civil rights movement really began in that moment when Rosa said no. That is why Rosa is called the mother of the civil rights movement. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was the peaceful leader of the civil rights movement. He led the bus boycott in Montgomery, Alabama with Rosa Parks. Martin promoted change and the achievement of equal rights through nonviolence. Martin's powerful speeches changed people's hearts and minds, and he led the way to change laws that were 100 years old, allowing African Americans to fully participate in American society. As a nation, we honor Martin's work each year on the third Monday of the month of January. Cesar Chavez was once a migrant worker. Members of his family were migrant workers too. During those years, Caesar became very aware of how hard life could be for people without any rights or protections. Migrant workers worked long hours for little pay. They often lived in overcrowded camps. Migrant workers could rarely afford health care. Caesar vowed to change all of this. He dedicated his life to making sure that all farm workers, including migrant workers, had certain basic rights. Caesar brought people together and created a labor union called the National Farm Workers Association. Eventually, through his efforts, Caesar succeeded in getting better pay and working conditions for all migrant workers. Without his determined leadership, these things might have never happened. Today, there are many people who work to make sure everyone in the United States is treated fairly, and that their rights are respected. As just one example, it is important that people who have disabilities and who are challenged physically or mentally are treated fairly and equally too. People with disabilities might have trouble seeing or hearing or walking. They might need to use wheelchairs, walkers, hearing aids, or service dogs. They have special devices to help them talk on a telephone, and they may use service dogs to guide them along sidewalks and into buildings. On July 26, 1990, President George H.W. Bush signed a new law called the Americans with Disabilities Act. This law gives protection to people with disabilities. For one thing, this law states that all people should be allowed easier access to all places people enjoy going to, such as restaurants, movie theaters, libraries, and other buildings and public places. The law also states that public transportation, such as buses and trains, must have paths and entries that are easy to manage, such as ramps, lifts, or elevators. This law also offers help to those who have diseases that are incurable. The diseases that make it hard for people to take care of themselves. And so, you see that it is important that we stand up and recognize when people are being treated unfairly, and we have just one world that we all share together. No person, because of their color of their skin, no culture group or religious group, should ever be treated unfairly. We have a responsibility to treat all human beings with dignity and respect. Dignity means a sense of respect and honor. As Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. once said, our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. So these people all work to bring about change through nonviolence, and this could be the best way to bring about change. So I would like you to discuss this with your family and think and decide what you think. Do you think that nonviolence is the best way to solve problems? You have heard about obstacles that were placed in paths along the way for all of these people. So I want you to also think about how they fought to change society and how people thought. Organizations and movements such as the Civil Rights Movement were created to as people fought for equal rights. Fighting for important causes has helped to change the laws and improve the lives of many people. Inequality, discrimination, and suffrage, those are all things that were fought for in this unit. Inequality means that people didn't always have equal rights, but they should. Discrimination means that people were treated differently for one reason or another, whether it be race, religion, skin color. And suffrage means that women and others didn't have the right to vote, even though the country was a voting country. Concepts of nonviolence and civil rights and human rights. Nonviolence is protesting in a way that you don't hurt anyone. So sit-ins, like we learned about, protests, and using your words instead of action. The lives and contributions of Susan B. Anthony, Eleanor Roosevelt, Mary McLeod Bethune, Jackie Robinson, Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King Jr., and Cesar Chavez fought during their lifetimes, created a better world for all of us today. The similarities among these causes supported by these people, they all fought for human rights, civil rights, and basic rights for the country. And they all used nonviolent methods. Jackie Robinson was the first African American baseball player in the Major League Baseball. Rosa Parks did not give up her seat on the bus for a white person and was taken to jail, but she still won. Martin Luther King gave a speech saying, "I have a dream," on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. And Cesar Chavez fought for the rights of migrant workers and farm workers in America. Fighting for a cause is important, and it's what our country is all about. So I hope you enjoyed this, and this unit was very important to all of us. So study hard and have a wonderful night. Bye.